Good morning or afternoon, whenever you are watching. I'm going to make a series of videos just to review some chemistry material to hopefully help you remember things we have talked about throughout this year, or at least this first trimester. So we're going to start kind of with Unit 1. I'm going to highlight the important points, what you need to know from Unit 1. The big thing we talked about in Unit 1 was significant figures. And then we did several unit conversions. Also we talked about density. So with significant figures, you need to be able to identify how many a number has, and then how to use them in calculations. And then density, you just need to know the formula and how to calculate it. So with significant figures, just some examples. If you're asked to count the number of significant figures, this number has 2. There are 2 digits. They are both part of this number 1.5. Now this number 1.50 would have 3 significant figures. This last 0 is there because this is telling you that this number or measurement was exactly 1.50 and not 1.49 or 1.51. So that 0 does count since we see a decimal and numbers that aren't 0 before it. Now if I have zeros leading into a number, we consider those placeholders. They're just showing you how small that number is, that this is 100th and not a 10th. So this would just be 1 significant figure. You could also rewrite this in scientific notation as 1 times 10 to the negative second. And to determine significant figures with that, you just look at the number part and we just have 1 there. Now the important part with significant figures really as we go forward is the rules when we add and subtract and multiply and divide. Now we don't really add and subtract a whole lot, at least in terms of our measurements, but we will be doing a lot of multiplying and dividing with stoichiometry. So to review that, if you had 2.5 milliliters times 3.41 milliliters. You just multiply like normal, plug it in the calculator, and I get 8.525 milliliters squared. But this number, your answer can't be more precise than the numbers given. So what do you do when you're looking for sig figs with multiplying and dividing? You count the total number. So I have 2 here, I have 3 here, and we want to round your answer to the least amount of significant figures. So we would round this to 8.5 milliliters squared. Again, not a unit we would see a lot with milliliters squared. We would just see milliliters with the volume. But this was just looking at an example of applying those significant figure rules. Remember with density, our formula, you will have to memorize this, is mass over volume. And the units are derived from the formula. Okay, so your mass could be grams, your volume could be milliliters, so then your unit for density would be grams per milliliter. Or maybe your mass was kilograms, and your volume was liters, so then your unit would be kilograms per liter. You would just have to make sure the units cancel. So just an example, if you had, with density, if you had a mass of an object, let's say was 35 grams, you placed it in a beaker, and the volume went from 35 milliliters to 38 milliliters. So our difference in volume would just be 3 milliliters. So if we take 35 divided by 3, we get 11.67 repeating. Here I just need 1 significant figure, so that 11.67 repeating would round down to just 10 grams per milliliter in terms of significant figures. Okay, really the only other important part with Unit 1, make sure you remember the metric system, so especially the relationship between kilo to our base unit, and then also make sure you know centi and milli. Those are the important ones. So if you had 100, or excuse me, if you had 1,000 milliliters, this would be 100 centiliters. If we go back to our base, this would be 1 liter. And then since kilo is so much larger, we'd have to move the decimal 3 to the left. So this would be 0.001 kiloliters. So this really sums up the important parts for Unit 1. If you have questions, let me know.